You're listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse. What's up, Storehouse Tribe? Hey, this is Stu, and hey, I just wanted to hit on one of the tenets of this podcast, financial freedom. David and I honestly think that the best way to get to financial freedom is through real estate investing. We've been investing in real estate for quite some time, and one of the coolest things about real estate is the relationships that we are able to create. We basically use partners on every single deal that we do, both in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for our turnkey rental company, and through some of our bigger deals. You know, we've done some stuff, some commercial properties here in Colorado where we live, and we're looking to do more. So if that's something that sounds of interest to you, we'd love to kind of tell you what we got going on, what we're doing. We're looking for more partners. We love building relationships and having, that trust with our partners and the ability to offer opportunities to invest alongside with us. If that's something of interest, hey, reach out to us. We'd love to jump on the phone. We'd love to jump on a Zoom call, tell you what we're up to. You can reach out to us through social media channels. You can hit us up on LinkedIn. You can hit us up on Facebook. Well, hit up me on Facebook. Don't hit up David. You can send us an email. You can go to our website, Storehouse 310 Turnkey, and go to the Contact Us page. Send us an email at podcast@Storehouse 310 Turnkey. Any of those options, reach out. Let's talk real estate, and we'd love to tell you what we're up to. Enjoy this episode. Most importantly, go fill your storehouse. See you. All right. This is another episode of Filling the Storehouse podcast. We have Walt Morgan on today. I haven't talked to Walt in probably like 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a few decades too.
Something like that. And we just got reconnected just recently, and it was super cool. I'm not going to lie, Walt. I was a little intimidated by you when I first joined our squad. You were a department head. You were an O4 flying helicopters. You've been around a little bit, and I just joined the squadron. I was a little intimidated by you. So just going to throw that out there.
So I have a question for you then, Stu.
Yeah.
Were you intimidated just simply by me positionally, by who I was, or did I show up in a particular way that made me unusually intimidating?
You were intimidated. I was intimidated because of your handsomeness and your amazing good looks and your stature and your just like, your way to like just protrude leadership.
So I'll assume that was only positional.
Is that a good way to start this podcast episode?
and we're off.
Yeah, we're off. Hey, yeah.
That's what makes it awkward, Walt, is that I guess two things. One, I really look forward to the day where I can say, "Man, Stu, I haven't talked to you for 20 years. That's going to be an awesome couple of decades." And then two, I feel for Stu because the way he described everything about how he felt about you is how he feels currently about our partnership, and it's just it gets awkward after a while, right? It gets awkward after a while. So.
And another way to look at it is what a beautiful thing that Stu shows up into every relationship with such gratitude and openness and appreciation. I admire how you're going through life, right. Stu. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, hey, just, for our listeners, give a little background about who you are and then now what you're doing now, if you will.
Okay. Who I am. Boy, I should have gotten a list of questions in advance. I would have felt more prepared for the who I am question.
Yeah. Who is the Walt Morgan?
I am a developmental executive leadership coach. That's what I am. And I'm quite comfortable owning that. A few years ago, I think that would have been maybe an uncomfortable ownership for me, but that's fully who I am. And that's fully how I partner with other human beings and how I serve other human beings. So I don't mind just starting off by saying that I'm a developmental coach, I'm a leadership coach, I'm an executive coach. It's very much part of who I am. Who am I? I am a person who's deeply invested in my family and our growth as a family. I am a person who is, I think, the culmination of a lot of experiences, and the reflection around those experiences, and my continued effort to bring meaning into those also brings meaning into who I am. And I'm somebody who's very, very much on a journey, foremost. So it's somebody who has become so excited about my journey as a human being, as a person, as something that is bigger than myself, and my awareness around that, and ability to, I guess, my ability to understand it, to continue to grow and to serve it. But yeah, I'm somebody who's increasingly aware of my own journey, and that helps me, I guess, show up in awareness of others more too, and my connectedness to them. So that's who I feel like I am this morning, as I'm answering that question.
I love it. Well, and to go back before that, so we served together. You were a helicopter pilot, and then after you left the department head tour, you went, and we spoke a little bit earlier. You went and were a ROTC instructor. Well, you did a individual augmentation, and then you were a ROTC instructor at CU, correct? And you were teaching leadership there.
Yeah, there's a couple of other stops along the way.
Yeah.
There's some war college. I served democracy by eating croissants in Brussels for 3 years.
Nice.
There was they took that back in Afghanistan for a year, and then I was the executive officer at my own commissioning source, which is the University of Colorado here in Boulder, and so I was able to do a full circle. I ended my military career in the same place that it began, here in Boulder, Colorado, with a very different perspective. I think it was it T.S. Eliot in the quartet that says, I'm going to butcher this in my paraphrasing, to return to the place from where you began and to know it for the first time. It was very much my experience to feel it in a very, very new way, a new perspective. So yes, I ended up back here in Boulder, and serving the beginning of the journeys for others in their military careers, new officers in the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I love that, Walt. And there's a couple things that you said that I want to get back to. When I think the level of self-awareness and the desire to serve is really a great combination for coaching. We'll get into that, as how you lead others in the transition, specific from military, but also as they, whether it is as an executive or just the life coaching in general and their growth. But I'm curious, one thing you said is you were uncomfortable in the ownership of that title. And I'm just curious why. What was it we talk a lot about mindset on our podcast, and was it imposter syndrome? Was it what was it that caused you to feel that discomfort, and how did you get past it? Those very intriguing to me.
Oh, good. Well, that's a great question, David. Because I think I didn't know that coaching was a thing, even though that's what I was embarking on professionally, even though I'd hired others to coach me and was fully aware of the power and the benefits of that kind of partnership and growth. I wasn't willing to acknowledge the fullness of, I would say, my own power through the cultivation of a skill set, my study, my embodiment of a methodology, and just of me and my lived experience and who I am. I was playing small, and so that would be part of it. So that goes to the imposter syndrome. Just acknowledge that I have this ability to serve others, and it's okay to name that and to be that and to identify with that. And the other is I hadn't done it a lot, right? I was starting off, I'd been So when I left my role as the XO of the unit at CUNROTC, I was at a crossroads. Stu might remember how much I love to fly. That's so much identity as a pilot, and that was so much joy and training and experience. That's so important. I was at this crossroads because I felt really strongly called into leadership development. And it was because I've been teaching leadership classes at the university for 4 years. And that was an important period of self-discovery for me, and reflection and some pain and some growth and all those things that go with the journey. And so then I'd been in corporate leadership development for 3 years. I was with the Fortune 200 healthcare company. And I was in that space and comfortable there, and grew in my confidence and grew personally a lot. And I still hadn't witnessed what coaching could do. So I think I'm far more ready to own my identity as a coach and say I am. 2.5 years later, when I've had dozens of clients and I've just seen what's possible and understood that, I participated in that, I served in that. So yeah, I'm a coach. I'm comfortable now. I wasn't then because I didn't really fully embody it.
No, I love that. And just, I was asking selfishly because I think Stu and I, as we transition and looking at the areas that we're really where we're passionate, there's some, we love elements of coaching and accountability and these different groups that we're looking at starting and have started. And there's some of that in there. So I ask you selfishly to how do you actively get past some of that imposter syndrome and get to the point where you're like, you know what, this is who I am. I believe this, and there's value in it. And even to the point where you can say, and I can charge for this. I can make a living out of this. This is a huge value add to others, and I can honor it in that way. And I love how you said, and name it, right? And name what it is, and then pursue it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I'm curious, as military members, as higher ranking officers, as leaders, as even we could call each other mentors to people. What is that difference between being a mentor to somebody versus like being a coach or being, just a leader in general? Like, what's that difference there?
Yeah. Really, really good question. And I think it's one that's frequently confused.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people say, I've been coaching my whole career. And maybe, and not maybe as I understand coaching. I think the primary distinction between mentorship and coaching is the source of the wisdom in the relationship, right? A mentoring relationship tends to be a little bit more informal. It tends to go on for years. It might not have specific goals beyond the broad development of another human being. But the wisdom typically comes from the mentor herself or himself, right? The mentor is the knowledgeable one in this, who has relevant experience that might be useful for the mentee. The underlying assumption in coaching is that the individual being coached has the wisdom. That's where the wisdom lies. It's a significant distinction. And so when I show up in a coaching conversation, one, I can't help that individual explore their own wisdom if I'm in the way. So I have to show up fully in openness, without judgment, without opinion, right? If you're a mentor, you kind of have to have an opinion. This is how things should be. Like if I show up in a coaching conversation and a dialogue, I am holding space that's truly open, and you can feel it when it's happening. I feel it through my chest, and there's this openness, and I can feel the deep connection with another human being. And at that moment, we're able to unlock some of that wisdom that might be hidden through any number of judgments or subconscious. So it's really a process of helping somebody else mediate their own thinking, exploring it, opening it, understanding it, connecting with their wisdom, connecting with their truth, so that serves them in a very, very specific goal, which is another distinction as I approach coaching from mentoring. We're going to name what that individual is going to be able to do better with real clarity, crisply. We're going to name it. And the entire coaching program is going to be about achieving that outcome. And when it's done, right? I don't believe in long-term open-ended coaching relationships, right? I believe in clear outcomes, getting there, shoving the coachee gently and with compassion from the nest, and then allowing them to fly. And then often they'll come back for other coaching engagements, but those engagements are new engagements, right?
No problem.
It's not ongoing. There's going to be a new purpose and clarity.
Right. I love that. It's it makes me think about kind of some of the stuff that we've been going through, and as we grow our real estate careers, reaching out to someone who's an expert in real estate might not really be like, we're pretty knowledgeable on real estate, and although there are people that might have more success and have done more bigger deals or whatever, been in it longer, it might not be like the real estate aspect that's holding us back. It might be like mindset stuff, or someone who like a coach, like you're talking about, who we should really be reaching out to, which and David, I don't want to steal your question, but it kind of just leads to another question that I have is when is the right time to really choose and decide on hiring a coach? Like, who's doing that, and when is a good time for that?
Yeah. One good time is when we feel stuck, right? Like the same thing that's always worked for us is no longer working, and that's I think that's a critical observation that I've made in coaching and leadership development over the years, is that skill set that we're working to move beyond and transcend and to create something new, because that skill set is limiting, or that thing, that way of being is the term I use, that way of being becomes limiting. That's the same way of being that got us there, right? It's the same way of being that served us historically. It's what we keep going to, but suddenly it's limiting us. So if we feel stuck, like when that same thing isn't working, or we feel, man, if only I could, right? If only I could just establish firm boundaries. If only I could show up with worthiness and confidence, and just name my truth. Or if I could look outward and understand with more clarity what was important to the team. Or if I could only just shift my focus from this down and in and this rat race that I felt engaged in for the last 15 years, create space for true strategic curiosity. And then, but I feel stuck. I don't think I'll ever be able to do that, but you can. It just requires the development of a new way of being. So that's the first one. You get to this place where you feel stuck. It's like, this isn't working. The second one, I think, the second indicator that it's time for coaching is if you're anticipating something, right? I'm anticipating this next phase, this new thing, this new role, this new phase of my family, right? Could be a personal thing, to better hold openness for my teenager with appreciation instead of always going to the you should. It could be personal, but often it's work. So many times it happens in the mid 40s when we're really caught between tactical mindsets and strategic mindsets. And we're like, oh man, I need to be able to delegate better, trust more, so I can be more open to larger and more deeply connected possibilities. So anticipation of the next phase would be the other one.
Yeah, in my mind is just, I think it's interesting. Stu and I always talk about with these podcasts, one of our favorite things is that we get schooled, right? We get coached up and certain things resonate. And I'll tell you, when you said the difference between coaching and mentorship, what it made me realize is that probably for years now, I've been seeking, well, not only, seeking mentor or coaching versus mentorship and how that relationship has really defined itself and being like, man, I'm dissatisfied here. That's not what I want to do. But also it's very empowering because I have felt when I have said coaching and my desire to want to help people and coach, I've always been a bit overwhelmed because in my mind, it was my internal wisdom that was a requirement to be able to help somebody. And so there was this big threshold, this big barrier to entry because I have to know all these different things. But when you just put power to words right there, when you said, well, coaching is helping them with their wisdom to become who they want to become. It's not, I don't have to be an expert in all real estate and all different areas. I just have to be willing to listen and take the skill sets of coaching that you've obviously refined and help somebody else to realize their vision. I think that was a very important distinguisher. So thank you for that. That was, it was eye-opening for me. And it really, in this moment, like empowered me to be like, dude, I think we, even the context of our masterminds too, and the different things we're looking at, it just is very empowering. And to that point too, I think it's a very important distinction for people when they're seeking. It also empowers you as a person to say, okay, I don't want mentorship necessarily. I don't want your wisdom and the things that you do. I want coaching. I want you to help me to take what I've got going on and refine that and give me a vision. And that leads directly into my question about, your focus on veterans and the coaching you give to transitioning members. And as we transition too, it's very intriguing. So if you don't mind talking a little bit about that and just some of the lesson learned and the commonalities and challenges you see with specifically veterans transitioning out of the military, because it's such a significant change.
Yeah. So I thought at one point when I was setting up my business that I was going to be a veteran coach, right? Like coach through that veteran transition. And if I can start by sharing a story of something that happened to me in my transition that was really, I say, powerful and eye-opening in my life. And so it was right before I went on terminal leave. And you have to understand that there's this story that I'd been carrying in my whole career, which was, man, I don't care about rank. I don't care about military identity. I don't care about what I wear on my chest. All I care about are sailors and mission, right? That's it. And it's like this story that I was carrying and sought to reaffirm. So right about the time I was going on terminal leave, I felt an excruciating pain in my lower back and leg. It felt like it was the nerve pain. It wasn't like the normal. It was like nerve pain, like the full spectrum of the deep throbbing all the way to the kind of the rapid high frequency nerve pain and everything in between. It's like somebody stuck a nerve knife in my lower back and in my kneecap. And there's just this rope of fire in between the two. And it was so painful that I couldn't walk. I couldn't be upright for more than 3 minutes at a time. And it was terrifying. And of course, immediately I went to the doctor, and they, they told me I had bulging discs and all these normal things that helicopter pilots have. And I was getting epidurals, right? It's getting like needles jabbed in my spine, and nothing was working. And my leg within a month atrophied. just completely atrophied. My leg and butt just atrophied to this like toothpick, and I couldn't walk. And I'm like looking at the rest of my life, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm an active person, backcountry fly fishing is my greatest passion, recreationally speaking, and it was terrifying. And this had gone on for 2 months, and a friend outside the military said, "Well," and he's a scientist. He's got a Harvard degree, and he's like, "Look, I'm going to drop this book off on your porch, like just read it." And so I read this book. It was Healing Back Pain by Dr. Sarno. And just the general idea of the book is, hey, your nervy appendage and back pain, that's not a physical event. Your doctors are going to tell you have bulging in discs, but it's not a physical event. It's an emotional event. So kind of the 3-step process was, press, I believe this is an emotional event. Quit doing your physical therapy and try to live your life as normally as possible. I'm like, all right, I'm desperate. But what do I have? Like, what's going on in my life that might be an emotional event? There's nothing springs to mind. And so I hit, I believe, and no kidding, I'm going to say it was the next day or 2 days later, I took Hank, our dog, on a 15-minute walk. And I can't tell you how big that was for somebody. Like, I couldn't shave, right? Because it requires being upright for more than 3 minutes. I couldn't do anything. So I took Hank for a 15-minute walk. Like, it was a week or so later, I think, if I remember correctly, that I did Panorama Loop here in Boulder. It's normally an hour hike for me. It took me about 2 hours. I was able to do this hike, kind of dragging this leg, but the pain was diminished, like, considerably. And then 3 weeks after that, I put on a backpack with some water and some snacks and sat outside the front door, and said with curiosity, like, I don't know where I'm going to end up, but let's see. And I ended up on top of Green Mountain about 3 or 4 hours later, just from our front door. And I was fine. 2 months later, I put on a 60-pound pack and went into the backcountry and camped out and fished for a week. So what was that emotional event, right? The emotional event was this narrative that I'd shared with myself was false, or it wasn't completely true, right? This idea of sailors and mission, yeah, that was important to me. But my identity was deeply important too. And there was so much fear around losing that identity. Like, who would I be? What would that mean? And so, having had that experience, and I told that story at a veterans program once, and a EOD senior chief approached me after the program. He's like, I'm so glad that you told that story. He says, I have a story. I'm like, I'd like to hear your story. He said, I was coming out here. I was flying out here. This is the first time I've flown since I separated. And at the kiosk at the terminal, there's a question that said, are you active duty military? Yes or no? It's a binary question. It was a simple question. He said, I couldn't make myself answer no. I froze. I just stood there. He said, I don't know how long I stood there. I couldn't make myself press no. He wasn't ready to move on. And so, it occurs to me through these programs, through my personal experience, that there's often an identity crisis and a just deeply emotional event at this time of separation from our military service. And so I thought, man, I would love to help carry people through that emotional event so that they can show up as their most hopeful and best and real selves in the next phase. And the initial program that I offered was excuse me, was about let's manage your emotions through transition. You can only imagine the people beating down my door to not go through that program, right? There was no interest at all. And this is
zero part of that.
What's that?
I want zero part of that.
Yeah, it's exactly. People sent me fan mail saying that. I want zero part of your stupid emotional transition program. And I'm like, okay, I get it. This isn't where we are. And it occurred to me or at least this is kind of my hunch, that we do amazing things in the military. Like every service has some variant of this story, but I'll speak to the Navy just because that's where my familiarity lies. Like we have a carrier, right? We have a bunch of carriers, but let's look at one carrier where there's nuclear plants on board. That seems like a pretty big deal. There's a lot of ordnance on board. There's 5,000 people, the average age of which is around 20. We're launching jets. We're landing jets. And when it's going well, about every 19 seconds, we're pushing a jet across that white line. And we're doing it all in a threat environment, in an uncertain meteorological environment, like all of it. Like, how is this even possible? But we do it. And every role on that ship is as important as any other, right? We do it because everybody plays their role. And you can go out to sea for 6 months, or you can go on deployment in the other militaries for months at a time and never be called by your own name, right? You only be called by the role that you play. And we become those roles, and we play those roles very well. And that's what makes the whole thing work. It's a beautiful orchestra of role interaction. But I kind of feel like every time we take on one of those roles, we're like putting a cookie cutter into the dough, and there's a little bit of dough left over that just kind of has to be hidden somewhere because it's not relevant to the role that we're playing. And all that dough accumulates, and that's something real and true about ourselves that we may have suppressed or forgotten, or doesn't feel useful or relevant anymore. So it's just kind of gone. And so at this time of transition, we want a job. And I'll talk, I've been an ACP mentor, if you're familiar with that program, and I'll talk to my new ACP mentee. This is me wearing my mentor hat, not my coach hat, and I'll offering my wisdom. And I'll talk to that ACP mentor on the first conversation. I'm like, okay, so sounds like getting a job is really important to you. So when would you like to start work? And several times I've heard, well, I go on terminal leave on a Monday, so I'd like to take a couple of days, but I'd like to be in my new role on a Wednesday. Fascinating, right? And it's this, I suspect, this fear of this gap of identity. Often, like, we know who we are in the military because of the job that we perform. But do we know who we are when we don't have a job to attach our name to? Right? Where do we hide all that extra dough, from our cookie cutter? Where does that all go? And why is that all so scary to connect with? So all of that to say that I recognize and acknowledge that that's just where veterans often are. I need a job. I want a job. I have my theories about why, but it doesn't matter. They just want a job. 3 years later, when they feel stuck because that job might not feel as fulfilling as they wanted, or doesn't create the identity that they hoped it would, or it just feels somehow incomplete, maybe that's a really good time for some in-depth one-on-one coaching. But what I have done is created a program that uses the word emotion a lot less. It's inevitable. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't tell your listeners that. It's inevitable that emotion will be part of it, as will, all the pieces of us, our interpersonal selves, our somatic selves, our cognitive, our moral, our spiritual, our emotional. All of that is are important parts of who we are that will be explored during coaching. But I have created a program that's a lot more focused. Well, I'll just lay it out here. Like, I think this is what's useful to transitioning veterans. One, making meaning of our service and honoring that meaning, right? What really prevents us from moving into change with openness and hope is this anchor of loss, right? We get so fixated on the loss of these things and it's the loss of service is deep. It's loss of relationships, It's a loss of clarity. It's a loss of financial security. It's a loss of rank and identity. It's a lot of which I've spoke to a lot. And so we get anchored to this loss. And until we can really clearly name and honor that loss, it becomes really difficult to move into a future with hope and possibility. So being able to name meaning around our service in a story, and it's okay if that story evolves over time, just being able to say, this is what my service meant, right? This is the story of my service can be important. And then I think it's really important to name those skill sets and behaviors that named us, that to name them, that served us during our service. This is something that worked well for me in defending the Constitution and working in the way that I did, right? This worked well, but it's not going to work anymore. Some of the stuff that worked well before, these behaviors and skill sets, aren't going to work anymore. So just honoring them, say, yeah, those used to work well, but I think I need to be honest that won't continue to serve me in the next steps. And then similarly, there's some behaviors and skill sets in the military that served us really well, and will continue to. And just being able to kind of draw some boundaries around that. You know, that thing used to work really well for me, and I think it still will. I can't tell you, there's when I was working in healthcare, we had 2,500 individual clinics around the country, and I would have been a disaster as a facility administrator, like a leader at one of those clinics, right? Like an over the hill retired 05 with this like kind of certain perspective. But you know who was great at that? Like consistently, E7s and E8s of any service. You bring in these senior NCOs, they love their people in a certain way that they love to be loved, but they do it in such a tactical, clear, and just structured way. And these facilities would respond and thrive under that. Man, those are skill sets that used to serve those senior NCOs that will continue to serve them. And being able to name that with clarity helps their transition. And then I would say the third thing that feels really important is it was easy for me to believe that I had everything that I needed, right? You know, the Navy in particular has this particular thing, you know, we train less than the other services, right? Like I used to say, the great thing about the United States Navy is we're making it up as we go along. But the horrible thing about the United States Navy is we're making it up as we go along. And there's this kind of belief in the Navy that any Navy officer can do any job without any training. You know, that's how I became an associate professor of leadership at the University of Colorado, right? No real training. And here I am. You know, so many of my roles and jobs, that's how I became an intel briefer at NATO, briefing 4-stars, right? Walt, the intel officer or helicopter pilot, but it doesn't matter. So I thought I could do anything, right? I thought I could do whatever. And there were and are some significant gaps in my readiness to go where I want and to be what I want and to meet my goals outside of the military. And I think acknowledging that and naming some of those early gaps as they're beginning to emerge is also useful in just framing this journey, right? So, you know, those 4 things would be, what was the meaning of it? Honor that, move on. What used to serve me but won't anymore? Name it, honor it, move on. What did serve me and will serve me? Let's hold that. Let's carry that forward. And let's be really honest about where I can grow. And let's find a pathway and be intentional around that growth.
Yeah, I love that. That's those are some knowledge bombs right there. You know, I'm curious, how does someone find the right coach? You know, how do you go from, all right, I'm in this position where I'm stuck, to Walt, you're my guy? Like, how do you figure out like where to go and how you find that?
it's hard. It's really hard because coaching is unregulated. Like it's hard enough to find a counselor or a therapist in a field that's highly regulated, and there's a lot of hoops through which you have to in regulation, just you have to jump through and prove yourself. Any human being can say they're a coach without any training. So it makes it really challenging to kind of sort through that. I would say the first step in finding your coach is talk to others that that have been coached. What was their experience, and did they like their coach? And why did they like their coach? And then maybe ask for an introduction. That person may or may not be the coach, but I give and get referrals all the time from other coaches. Like in our own coaching network, we have a sense of what our strengths are and who our best clients are. So just finding out what worked with somebody, that if you know somebody who has been coached, just find out their experience and then begin to connect through their network would be advice, because that's at least relevant. There's some results. Secondly, there is a coaching certification process out there, even though it's not highly regulated. There are several organizations. The primary would be the International Coaching Federation, ICF, and the ICF is really quite rigorous in their certification of coaching programs as well as individual coaching certifications. They do both. So they will accredit a coaching program. And if you if you find a coach that has been through an accredited coaching program, an ICF accredited coaching program, then that's a pretty good indicator that there was some rigor, at least. If they're additionally individually certified as an ICF coach, that requires additional levels of experience, and that can make you a little bit more comfortable. So that would be the next stage is, does this coach have any certification or been through certified accredited programs? And if so, what? I think a really fair question to ask any coach is, what's your methodology, right? Is there a methodology? I will say, I know a lot of coaches who are good at inquiry, like they're good at holding that space that I talked about earlier, but my sense is that they aren't as good about creating a clear pathway and structure with, attaching that inquiry and attaching that mediation of ideas and wisdom to something that leads to transformation, right? How do you get to that transformative outcome? I think is a fair question. And then I invite anybody who's looking for a coach, unless there's a real indicator, a really strong indicator that it's this one coach in particular, interview at least three coaches, and just find out what you like. So, and that gets us to the internet search. My God, the coaches that are going to show up the soonest on the Google search are coaches that pay the most for Google ads and tend to their SEO and all those things that are about playing that game. The best coaches are probably horrible at that game, right? It's not probably their strength. So how do you find the best? What's that?
Because they're spending their time coaching people.
They're spending, it's just, it's this funny observation, like, because people looking for a business coach, goes back to something that Stu said earlier. you'd think that you're looking for somebody who's good at business. And when you're looking for a coach, you're always actually looking for somebody who's good at humans, right? The context, the individual being coached brings the context of coaching. And again, Stu touched on that earlier when he said, "Oh, I always thought I needed a real estate coach." No, we don't need somebody. That's training. That's not coaching.
Yeah.
We're looking for somebody who specializes in us uniquely, with curiosity and compassion and empathy and inquiry and all these things, but they specialize in us, not what we do, in us. So sometimes business coaches or executive coaches aren't really that good at business. Sometimes they are. So I don't actually recommend Google for initial coaching searches. LinkedIn, I think, is a little bit more helpful, and being able to put in as many of your words as possible into your search. So kind of thinking, reflecting, what is it do I want in a coach? I'm looking for a developmental coach, so I'll put in those words. I'm seeking transformation, so I'll put in that word. I'm looking for somebody who focuses on women, so I'll put in that word. Whatever it is, like put in 4 words in your LinkedIn search. And then once those coaches show up, it becomes a lot easier to find those 3 that you want to interview. And anytime you reach out to a coach and say, "Hey, do you have 45 minutes? I'd just like to talk to you about what you offer." Any coach that has openings on their book will say, "Yeah, let's talk." Explore their websites and get a really good feel for who their best clients are from websites. But I think it's easier on LinkedIn than it is Google.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. David, you are out for coaching because Walt said that you have to be good at humans. You're out. You're out.
Stu, I think one day we'll have a guest that maybe will present a skill set that would be applicable to you, but after 100+ episodes, we've not yet found one. So I think this is no exception. Hey, Walt, that was I'll tell you, man, I have taken a bunch of notes because this is something that I'm very passionate about, and we'll have to talk more offline. But I think I'm passionate about this because, and it comes through in you in spades, but it's because you care. So it's very clear to me that you care deeply about people. You care deeply about helping people to achieve their highest and best, and whatever part you can play in that to help them get there, as quickly, as efficiently, as abundantly as possible. It's very clear that you that's something that you're passionate about. And I think man, I love it. Like, my brain is going nuts because a lot of times we talk to folks and they give us these knowledge bombs, and it's amazing. It grows us tremendously. But this conversation in particular has really ignited something different in me to try to, even the power of naming things, right? We talk about all the time about naming it. Well, you name specific things that I'm just like, man, I'm trying my hardest to focus on every word you're saying, but the things you're saying has my mind just going in a million directions because it's so powerful. So I just want to, I look forward to continuing the conversation. I look forward to picking your brain, and who knows, maybe, you'll allow me to be coached by you, and you can feed into that. Cause I'll tell you, this has got me fired up. It's pretty awesome conversation that we've had. And I'm just extremely grateful for you and what you do for people, and that you took the time to figure out what, on those long walks, what was important to you, and then, have pursued this career that I think is just hugely beneficial to those around you. And I am absolutely willing to do these sessions in the backcountry on a river fly fishing, because
I knew you were going there.
That is my absolute passion, is fly fishing. So I think that there's a good connection there.
I knew you were going there. It's good.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that affirmation, David. I'm so honored to be a part of the continuing conversation that the two of you facilitate. And I'm grateful for the curiosity that both of you showed up with, and your great listening, and the opportunity to connect with you and to share with your audience. So thank you again for that affirmation.
Thank you. And you're so skilled. Your screen froze, and most people's screen freezes on a picture that is very awkward, and they're like, doing some weird face, and you just have this perfect smile that it's frozen in. So that's great.
It goes back to what Stu said at the beginning. I look good all the time, which is why he once found me so intimidating.
It's
now
true.
I find it more welcoming, but you can't, I can't freeze at a bad moment.
Walt,
awesome.
where can people find out more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about Translational Lift Coaching?
Oh, well, thank you for that. Lift Coaching is my website, so tliftcoaching.com, and you can reach out directly to me from your audience at walt@tliftcoaching.com. Translational Lift Coaching is the company and is the business. Stu at least knows what that means, and the helicopter pilots in the audience will also get that. If you can recall that feeling of moving into translational lift, it's smooth and it's powerful, and it's what I hope that my clients achieve through coaching.
Love it. We'll put that in the show notes. And Walt, it's great connecting with you again. Hopefully we can connect more, maybe doing some backcountry fly fishing. And guys and gals, hey, reach out to Walt. Check out his website. There's a ton of information on there, some great blog posts, some great stuff there. And hey, if you like this episode, please leave us a review. 5 stars is greatly appreciated. Even for David, give him a 5-star review. He'll like that. It's charity, I know. But most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, friends. Walt, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Make it a great day.
See you.
See you.
Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we could continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs fill their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of building the kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.